the right corner, we have Open Boosters Poker Master. And how many chips do you have, by the way?
23.5.
23.5. 23,500. And what are the blinds, by the way?
The blinds are 2,000, 4,000.
And what do you? How many chips you got?
42,000.
Dale, the force of nature.
Yes.
Right here.
Kalinsky. Who's gonna win it? Brian's gonna be dealing. Let's get going. Shake hands, everybody. Shake hands.
Good luck, guys.
All right. All right. Let's go. Let's go. All right, guys. You guys get going. So I don't want to distract you guys with all the mic things.
You gotta pile it up. It's like a little later.
Yeah.
Table.
Yeah. I'll do it right here. Yeah, I'll do it right here.
Pile it up with the monsters on top.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Right in the center.
Is it rolling?
Put blue vice on
Yeah,
top.
it's rolling, dude.
I don't have blue eyes.
Yeah, that'd be
No one
fitting.
wants to play me.
Your ladies across.
Trade all that for blue vice.
There it is.
Not enough, is it?
No, I don't think
No.
so.
Yeah, it's probably not enough.
Not
No way.
enough. Not even close.
That is so hilarious.
Lotuses in it now.
Yeah.
All right. Go
It is
ahead,
so
guys.
hilarious
Go
to
ahead,
think
do it.
about.
Right, do it.
That pile
All
of
right.
cash is not enough for blue vice.
Ryan, please do not talk about that. Talk to you.
Not
by a long shot.
Not talking unless I talk to you.
That is so funny.
Brian, you're inferior to me.
Yeah, stupid cash. I want to see the cards.
Let me get my drink.
All right.
That's awesome.
Do not post this until.
Action is on
I
deck.
know
Do
you'd
not post
rather
this
have the
until later.
cards.
Until later.
Until the video's done,
So I crack the fucking cards.
It's gonna be one hand.
I call.
Call.
This is a great
Should
shot.
be it, guys.
Yeah. I'm gonna raise
It's gonna raise.
5,000.
Yeah. Raise 5,000 more.
Yep.
5,000 more. See you, Dan.
What's funny is it doesn't look like very much money. Compared to like the world saying, I think it's funny.
Only someone like you would say that.
Awake.
Wow. Big first hand.
Very first hand.
Wait. Big first.
Hey, this is Edwin, the Magic Engineer, and we're here at Vegas. We're going to be playing in the old school tournament tomorrow. And we got the crew in the hotel room. We just had a big poker tournament and a magic tournament, and now things have calmed down a little bit. We're going to lower our voices, and we're going to do some deck tech here. So I've got Tom's deck here, and I'm looking at this for the first time. And first of all, let me say, these are beautiful cards. I am really digging these cards. So we got a CE Lotus Emerald, and is this a real beta?
It's clipped.
Oh, it's clipped. Oh my god, I got all excited. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 over the power 9 inside here. Oh, 6 actually. Okay, so I see 4 colors.
4. That's right.
Yeah, I see 4 colors here.
No white.
Okay. So I have been asked to review this deck and to talk about it, about what I like and what I don't like, and strengths and weaknesses. So I'm going to give that my best shot. So I assume that this is for high-end competitiveness in the deck. And the first thing I'll call out right off the bat, when you're doing 4 colors, and your mana base has got to stretch across all those colors, obviously I see why you did the birds. Here's the problem right off the bat. Blood Moon is going to destroy this deck. And Blood Moon is prevalent at these tournaments. Now, do you have a Chaos Sword?
No.
There's no Chaos Sword.
For the Blood Moon, there are 3 Tranquility in sideboard.
But then how do you cast it? You have to hope you got a bird out in play already, or you draw like a Lotus or an Emerald.
Right.
Those are your outs. So yeah, Blood Moon is definitely something to be concerned about. And there are decks that main deck it. That doesn't mean the deck's bad. It doesn't mean that.
Right.
It just means like that's
Obvious
something
weakness,
to
though.
think about. Now you've got Sedge Trolls inside of here. So if you had them, you could do the Disco Troll effectively. And there's not very many artifact mana, but there's creatures. But then there's no discs in here, so that's a strategy you could possibly go into that you're currently not. But I see a lot of bolts. I see Fireball. So you've got some removal here. Giant Growth and the Berserks are going to try to be a kill shot, but they could also go into something else to try to... These could double as creature removal if they're played correctly. You have gone black for the Animate Dead, the Mind Twist, and the Demonic Tutor. Now, definitely some of Black's best cards. The question is, do they justify stretching your mana base out thin? And here's the dynamic, like how I'd like to say it. Are you going to lose more games based on a thin mana base than you're going to win games based on the Twist and the Tutor and the Animate Dead? The Animate Dead is not going to bring that power level up enough to actually offset the thinning of the mana base. But Mind Twist and Demonic Tutor can. They're pretty darn good, right? They can definitely change a game. I mean, Mind Twist will just end a game right off the bat. And okay, I'm getting a wash here. And Demonic Tutor will definitely just go get the answer that you need. Okay, so here's a question. Demonic Tutor's strength is relative to everything else that's basically in the deck of what you could go do. I think if you were able to get a Chaos Orb inside this deck, the Demonic Tutor's strength gets much better because you give yourself an answer for just about anything that could go hit the table. But even with that, you already got the Walk, you got the Ancestral and the Twist, you got the Brain Geyser, you've got a Wheel of Fortune, so you can go get card draw, you could go get something to start another turn, you could get a game finisher. So the Demonic Tutor is definitely strong as it is and could justify the black base. And I don't have to explain Mind Twist, everyone knows how good Mind Twist basically is.
The Animate Dead, I mean, I'm sure it's obvious, but that was just to try to abuse Ball Lightning as much as I could to, bring it back, Berserk at Giant Growth, and what have you. But I understand what you're saying. It still doesn't really have the value to stay in the deck.
The hard thing that I find about the Ball Lightnings is when you're doing lots of heavy tournament play, you find yourself really battling for board dominance, trying to get your mana on the board. And so obviously this deck is trying to go Ball Lightning, Giant Growth, Berserk, right?
Yeah.
And that's
18.
5 mana, but not just 5 mana, that's 5 colored mana. So you're going to have 3 reds and 2 greens to do that in one shot. And that can be hard to pull off just because you might be battling over mana control, mana superiority, right? So that's the issue I see with that. And that also, by the way, if you're trying to hit Ball Lightning, Giant Growth, Berserk, you're holding those cards in your hand until you have that 5 sufficient mana to play that. So something to consider is if you're going into a meta that's got more black decks in it, that might be a worse play because these black decks are going to be throwing Hymn to Turak and Mind Twist and Hypnotic Specters at you. But I guess you got some answers for Specters. But at the same time, I mean, the Hymns are going to be devastating because you're sitting there holding the Berserks and the Giant Growth, waiting to have that turn 4 or 5 play, and they're just knocking those cards out of your hand like crazy. And then as soon as those cards get knocked out of your hand, then the Ball Lightning gets a little bit worse because it doesn't have that big boom, that instant game-winning shot. Something else to consider is the thing I don't like about Ball Lightnings and why I constantly move away from them is an awful lot of people in these tournaments play with lightning bolts and swords to plowshares, things that can do small amounts of damage very fast. Oftentimes, I'll play a Ball Lightning and I'll put a Giant Growth on it, and they'll respond to the Giant Growth, and so they'll bolt the Ball Lightning before the Giant Growth resolves, and then Ball Lightning blows up and you got a 2-for-1, and it costs you 5 mana or 4 mana to do that, right?
Triskelion is it too.
Yeah, Triskelion will knock it out. Triskelion's very prevalent. Lightning Bolt's very prevalent, right? You're going to see that a lot of those. And that really hits your Ball Lightnings hard,
That
right?
feels bad, man.
Yeah, it feels bad. So, I mean, the ones that I lean towards cutting the most are those, right? Now,
Those are my little poopsies.
yeah. Well, if you, okay,
But
so
no, you're right.
if you love them
You're right.
and you're having fun with them, I mean, that's subjective. I can't.
Of course, winning is great, but the Ball Lightning, Ball Lightning in Berserk is the whole core of why I made that.
Right.
I wanted a fun, explosive deck. But I hear what you're saying, that they come with a heavy cost.
They do. They do come with a heavy cost. How much different would this be if instead of the Ball Lightnings, you put some Nevinrall's discs in, which forces them, it gives you an answer for Blood Moon, firstly, which is a big threat, right? Nevinrall's disc would be an answer, but then secondly, it couples with your Sedge Trolls really well, right? And it's going to force your opponent to hold cards back and be not as aggressive, which is what you want them to do. When you're playing an aggressive deck that can Giant Growth and Berserk and bam, end the game.
And you can regenerate a Berserk, right?
That's right. You can regenerate the Sedge Troll, right? Okay. So maybe adding another Sedge Troll and 3 Nevinrall's discs is a good trade for the Ball Lightnings.
Okay.
I'm kind of thinking. But then, if you pull these guys out, you don't have an awful lot of beef creatures, right?
Right.
You have access to an awful lot of blue. Serendib, Befried, and Urnam Jin come to mind, of course. But people play with Ready Blast a lot main deck, and they play with City in a Bottle, So that's gonna lead you more towards being at risk for City in a Bottles being played, and you don't have any disenchants. There's no shatters, so you have a harder, and there's no Chaos Orb. So City in a Bottle would be a bigger problem if you lean deeper into those strategies. However, you could maybe go like Juggernaut. Juggernaut could be a good answer because
Juggernaut was in there at one time, and I took it out just because it was so susceptible to disenchant, lightning bolt, of course, swords. It just had some extra vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. So something to mention on that is
but the colorless is great.
Yeah,
that
and it
really
gets you
helps.
past Blood Moon also. Juggernaut's an answer to Blood Moon.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's an answer to City in a Bottle. Something that I like to think about with that, and like maybe it doesn't fit this deck, maybe it does. Maybe we could talk about that a bit more. But what I like about playing a card like that is people oftentimes just think about like, you know, the one-to-one card relationship. What I often think about is like, how do I suck the other cards out of the other guy's hand? Like, let me assume he has 2 to 4 disenchants in his deck, right?
Right.
If I play Juggernauts and he's wasting his disenchants on the Juggernauts, what else am I going to follow it up with, right? And so in the decks, not so much this one, but in the decks that have other threats, right? Mm-hmm. Like you've got like Blood Moons, you've got Energy Fluxes, or you've got Karmas, or, you know, something else that's in that realm. You know, if they blow all their disenchants, killing, you know, your Juggernauts, then they're open to other things happening. So like, but coming back to this one, if you had 3 Nevinrall's discs and you have 4 Juggernauts, that's already 7 targets for their disenchants, right? But then you've also got like maybe a Chaos Orb if you can find a way to swing that, and that's 8 targets for their disenchants. And then you've also got your artifact mana. So I mean, and you've got your Animate Dead. So you've given them more targets for disenchant than they've actually got disenchants. As it is, if somebody's packing disenchant against you, they've got 4 targets for disenchant right off the bat. 5, I guess. Right?
This was also just a little fun spice there.
Sure. Which I like. I definitely I love this. Is one of my favorite
it was
EDH
fun
cards.
/ it did have some function if I'm trying to be sneaky with the ball lightning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Crazy damage.
It's true.
It's true.
And a lot of times, you know what's funny about this is people oftentimes they won't waste their disenchant on it. They'll look at it and be like, okay, fine, you can see my hand, I can get around it, right? So they won't disenchant it. And so it'll just stick around. But unfortunately for you, you've actually got not a lot of targets for disenchant. So as soon as they've got, you know, multiple disenchants in their hand, then suddenly, you know, looking at their hand every single turn starts to look a little bit worse. But overall, the concept I'm trying to get through is that you got to expect in this format, people are going to be playing Artifact Enchantment Destruction. They're going to have it main deck. Like Divine Offering Disenchants. They're going to have it, right? And you don't have enough targets to suck them down. Yeah. So if you add in Nevinrall's Discs and Juggernauts, you've now overwhelmed their disenchants. And if they waste them all on Juggernauts, here comes the disc. Get ready to suck on that one, right? Yeah. And they're going to suffer it, right? And you've got a strategy that backs it up with your trolls, right? So I don't know. Personally, I like that strategy because you're going to overwhelm their artifact destruction. It plays into the trolls. It helps you with Blood Moon, which is a huge threat that you've got here based on your mana base. And then you can now keep the Mind Twist and the Demonic Tutor, which are just fantastic cards, right? So you can have this thin mana base, abuse some of the worst, you know, most abusive cards in the game, and be able to survive City in a Bottle and Blood Moon just fine, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, that's kind of my initial thoughts on it.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Edwin.
Thank you.